This story is one that we don't think enough about when we think about climate change, shifting food and land systems. Food plays a central role in each of our lives and is one of the greatest opportunities for effective climate action in 2024. For example, in Kenya, it's a pillar of the economy. 40% of the population has jobs connected to agriculture, producing domestic staples like maize, cash crops like tea, coffee, mangoes. The country is also one of the only few in the world with a constitutional mandate to protect and restore its forest. Let's hear from Wanjira Maathai in Nairobi.
This is City Market right at the heart of Nairobi, my hometown. This is where we bought our vegetables, our fruits, our flowers, our meats. And it was farmers and people like Mutua who would wake up at the crack of dawn to travel right here to this market as far as 20 kilometers to sell their fresh produce, some of the most beautiful fresh produce anywhere. This was a near daily ritual to secure lives and livelihoods. Now, food systems are central to human life and our impact on the planet. It affects land use, forest loss, rural development, and is a source of livelihoods. The food in this market comes from all over Kenya and even East Africa. The truth is, the fruits and vegetables you see here are part of a massive value chain. You could walk into a supermarket in Europe and find Mutua's green beans and his mangoes right here from Kenya, avocados from Mexico, blueberries from South Africa, and lamb from places as far as New Zealand. Today's food systems are vast and incredible, and they have enormous environmental footprints. 30% of greenhouse gas emissions are connected with the food system. But the story to watch here is the central role of food systems like these in driving climate change and at the same time securing lives and livelihoods. So how do we fix the system, make it more productive and better for the environment and more equitable? The truth is, if we don't succeed, then climate change will make things even worse for families and for lives. Now, here in Kenya, the food system is extremely vulnerable. Out in the countryside, we're already seeing the impacts of climate change. We have extreme weather events, livestock is dying, crops are failing and soils are eroding, and pure water sources are becoming more and more depleted. But it's businessmen like Mutua who are facing the brunt of this the most, either as smallholder farmers or families that are supported by these businesses living on the edge. And yet we also know that if we produce differently, protect soils, reduce waste, and restore landscapes, we can make food systems work better for a real contribution to fighting climate change. Practices that improve agriculture and food security will ensure more productive farms and accrue benefits of restoring key landscapes. That is why the food systems agenda is WRI's second story to watch for 2024.
That was Wanjira in Nairobi. Food systems connect people, nature, and climate in every country of the world. But the current system is dysfunctional for three reasons. First, it's failing to feed the world's people. Although we produce enough food to feed everyone today, hundreds of millions still face hunger. And over 30% of food produced for human consumption is lost or wasted. Second, as Wanjira pointed out, even as climate change increasingly threatens agriculture, food systems are responsible for 34% of global emissions. However, the current patterns of consumption are deeply unequal, with the global north eating far more meat and dairy per person than other parts of the world. Third, the way we produce food and fiber requires an enormous amount of land and water. Commodities like beef, soy, and palm oil drive around 3/4 of tropical deforestation and biodiversity loss. The food system clearly needs a massive overhaul. But this transition is also highly political. Food is deeply woven into our lives and culture, and it is at the heart of our national identities. Almost half the world's people live in households where someone is employed in the food system. In India, 44% of the population work in agriculture. This political and social importance helps explain why governments across the world spend more than $700 billion a year on direct farm subsidies. Much of that money could be redirected to make the food system work much more sustainably. Countries could learn from Brazil, where loans to farmers were linked to curbing deforestation, or to Kenya, where government programs help smallholder dairy farmers boost their productivity using improved grasses to feed their animals. Reorienting subsidies is one of the commitments made by countries in a historic outcome on food at COP28 in Dubai. 159 countries signed the Emirates Declaration, agreeing to integrate food and agriculture into their national climate plans by 2025, scale up adaptation and resilience for farmers, and much more. And a group of ambitious countries called the Alliance of Champions for Food Systems Transformation announced they would go even further, committing to take a whole-of-government approach to food system change. The biggest thing to watch for in food systems is how countries revise their climate plans to incorporate the Emirates Declaration on Food. But that will not happen until COP30 in Belém next year. Countries need to make progress this year to get ready for Belém. So what to watch for this year? 4 big shifts need to happen, and many are highly political. First, produce. We must produce more food on the land we currently use. As we look for more innovative ways to increase productivity, there is also a major opportunity to reduce emissions from agriculture. Emissions from sources like cows and sheep and paddy fields where rice is grown are responsible for nearly half of all methane emissions globally. Methane is among the most harmful planet-heating gases. More than 150 countries have pledged to cut methane emission by 30% by 2030. At COP28, these countries, along with philanthropists and businesses, announced hundreds of millions of dollars for methane reduction in the food and agriculture sector. Will this new funding and research lead to technological breakthroughs in 2024? Will we see countries or companies' agriculture methane emission begin to fall? Second, protect. Watch for countries to make progress on protecting nature by stopping commodity-driven deforestation. As I've said, Indonesia has steadily reduced deforestation for several years through bold policies. Will these trends continue across the globe? For example, will the re-election of the current president of DRC mean that he will continue his vision of a new climate economy for the Congo Basin? And will the international community step up to meet President Lula's call for billions of dollars of new finance to protect forests? Third, reduce. This will be an important year for nations to reduce pressure on food systems through changes in consumption patterns. For example, the EU introduced a proposal for the world's first legally binding target to limit food loss and waste in 2023. Will member states show leadership by agreeing to the targets and proposing national legislation to make them a reality? Denmark and South Korea announced national action plans to drive production and consumption of plant-based food. Will this accelerate a transformation of their food systems and prove popular among consumers? In 2024, will countries introduce policies that further expand biofuels and bioenergy? Or will they finally recognize the harmful effects of dedicating cropland to energy use and start to cut back? Lastly, restore. In Africa, 260 million people rely on the land for food and income, but far too much is degraded. To bring those land back to productivity, countries across Africa have committed to restore more than 100 million hectares with a focus on creating jobs and improving livelihoods for farmers. Leaders in Ghana, Kenya, and Ethiopia have taken steps to transform their commitments into real policies and incentives. Will more heads of state in Africa and around the world follow suit this year? The food and land system has enormous potential as a solution to the climate crisis, if we can summon the courage, the money, and the ideas to make change happen. Bold national policies are needed to turn the Emirates Declaration into real action that makes the food we all rely on better for people and for nature.